Test 2. Number 1. Dear Mr. Charlton, our school library is very nice, and I am proud of being a member of the library maintenance team. And as a student and a member of the team, I would like to suggest a few improvements that would make our library even better. First, a library should be a quiet place, but noise from the school cafeteria can easily be heard in the school library. Therefore, I think the library should be moved to the first floor so that the noise can be minimized. There is also a need for additional bookshelves to accommodate the books that have been piled up in a corner of the library. Finally, a magazine and newspaper section should be created so that students can come to the library to read about current events. Thank you in advance for considering my suggestions. I look forward to talking with you about them. Yours faithfully, Gloria Evans. Number 2. The day of the salsa contest arrived and practically all the local dance schools took part. The hostess introduced Annette and Rainer from Diego Santiago's dance school on stage. They walked up onto the dance floor. While they bowed to the jury and the audience, Rainer noted that Annette was trembling with anxiety. "Don't worry," he encouraged her in a low voice. "You were born to dance. We'll be okay." He squeezed her hand, and Annette felt the warmth that radiated from his hand, flowing like calming energy through her body. Her goosebumps disappeared and were replaced by excitement and joyful anticipation. Annette stood in the spotlight in front of a large crowd and felt not afraid, but absolutely supported by her partner. It was as though, when he held her hand, he absorbed all her fears, leaving her with only positive feelings. Number 3. A big mistake many new college students make is just sitting in their rooms. Some students stay in their rooms waiting for friends to come find them, convinced that it will happen on its own. Other students remain in their rooms because they feel shy or are uncertain about how to approach other people. For the first few weeks of the semester, you should try to spend as little time as possible in your room. Walk down your residence hall corridor and look into other rooms where doors are propped open. If you see a student sitting alone in a room, knock lightly, say hello, and introduce yourself. If nothing else, get out and walk around campus. Look for groups of new students who are hanging out together and join them. Whatever you do, don't isolate yourself. Most students form friendships within the first couple of months of college, and it is much harder to join existing groups than it is to meet new people one-on-one. Number 4. The freedom to choose one's identity is critical, since the sources of identity are shifting from belonging to achievement. Speaking for many, Kaimlicka says that identification is more secure, less liable to be threatened if it does not depend on accomplishment. But this is absurd. Achievement increasingly is the basis for a satisfying life. To be sure, some people want unconditional acceptance by their in-group, but more and more, people in rich countries achieve many of their identities. They choose their careers, friendships, allies, mixing and matching pieces and styles. Even their ethnic, racial, and national affiliations are forged in various ways, despite the fact that a person's self-image depends partly on how he's viewed by others. Indeed, the ability to make one's own self is the essence of freedom. A good society recognizes and does not pit roots and wings against one another. If roots are the necessary condition for happiness, then wings are the sufficient condition. A good life is not possible without both. Number 5. The efficient and valuable use of big data needs the personal and organizational capacity of asking the right questions and in the right way. Big data is powerful only if it is generated, combined, or supported by the creation of strong narratives, organizationally and contextually framed. This means that the big data has to be thick, i.e., not only quantitatively but most importantly qualitatively relevant. The arts humanities are important in the age of digital transformation and big data because they dominate the knowledge domains of the creation and communication of narratives as well as meanings of human life. In other words, the arts and humanities are capable of embedding into big data the aesthetic, human-based dimensions that ultimately make them relevant in order to identify, address, and solve key questions for sustainable societal, economic, and environmental wealth creation. The arts and humanities are essential in order to make big data, analytics, data mining, and digital transformation significant for stakeholders. Number 6. Once you have firmly established the habit of placing a pair of commas around a non-essential element that interrupts or changes the normal order of the English sentence, you can consider a few situations in which this mark of punctuation may safely be omitted. You are doubtless aware that the tendency of modern writers is to make considerably less use of punctuation than their predecessors did. One reason for this, of course, is that we have ceased to use the musical notation that was once fashionable, probably because most modern prose is designed to be read silently, to be taken in by the eye and not by the ear. These marks were never marks of actual punctuation, in the sense that they clarified meaning, and today they have almost disappeared from printing. A more important reason for the diminishing amount of punctuation in modern writing is that our writers are learning to construct their sentences in such a way that the word symbols themselves communicate the meaning clearly. Number 7. Like the downtown office complex, tourism has frequently developed as islands of renewal in seas of decay. The strategy of carving out sharply demarcated and defended zones for middle-class consumers of entertainment and leisure came naturally to older cities confronted with problems of crime, poverty, and physical neglect. Creating a tourist bubble was tempting, some might say necessary, as a way not only of securing a space for development, but for achieving an efficient application of scarce resources. In a hostile environment, zones of demarcation can solve seemingly insolvable problems of image and social control. Tourists who visit converted cities are unlikely to see the city of decline at all, except on their way from an airport. For tourists, the city can be reduced to a simulacrum, a set piece representing the city in its entirety. Thus, reduced to Harbor Place or the Renaissance Center and Greektown, both Baltimore and Detroit can be presented as gleaming new places to play. Number 8. Henry Cavendish was born in 1731 in Nice, where his parents had gone because of his mother's health, which continued to fail. She died 2 years later after giving birth to a second son. Henry's father never remarried. When Henry was 11, he was enrolled in Hackney Academy, a progressive school outside London. From there, he proceeded to St. Peter's College, Peterhouse, Cambridge University in 1749, leaving after 3 years without a degree. For the next 30-odd years, he lived at his father's house on Great Marlborough Street, London. Freed from the need to support himself, he followed his inclinations, which were to study and carry out researches in the physical sciences. Around the time his father died, in 1783, he acquired 2 houses of his own, one in and one outside London, both of which he adapted to his scientific habit. He was a prominent member and administrator of the Royal Society of London. His manner of living was modest, and over time he accumulated an immense fortune. He died in 1810 at age 78. Number 9. U.S. Adults' Evaluation of Health Risks of Food Additives Sorted by Gender. Percent of U.S. adults who say the following. The graph above shows U.S. adults' evaluation of the health risks of food additives sorted by gender. Women are more inclined than men to view food additives as a serious health risk. More women, 55%, than men, 46%, say that additives in the food people eat every day pose a serious risk to their health. More than 4 in 10 women say fruits and vegetables grown with pesticides pose a great deal of health risk, while about 1 in 4 men say the same. Women, 39%, are more wary than men, 25%, of meat from animals given antibiotics or hormones. Men and women show the smallest difference in their evaluation of serious health risks when it comes to food and drinks with artificial preservatives. The lowest percentage of both men and women say food and drinks with artificial coloring pose a serious health risk. Number 10. 2020 Jacksonville's annual Isle of Lights. One night a year, Jacksonville shines with thousands of twinkling lights for the Isle of Lights celebration. Since 1990, on every second Sunday of December, Jacksonville residents and businesses have celebrated this annual community tradition. And on December 13th, this year, every sidewalk of Jacksonville will shine again. How to participate. 1. Visit the Jacksonville Community Center from December 6th to December 12th to fill out a brief registration form and get a free Luminaria kit. 2. The Luminaria kit includes candles, paper bags, and sand. 3. Arrange the bags, each with a candle inside and weighted with sand in the bottom, along your sidewalk. 4. Light the candles on Sunday, December 13th around 6 p.m. and enjoy. 5. Don't worry about cleaning up the luminarias. Volunteers will collect them the next morning. Other winter activities. In addition to the Isle of Lights celebration, there will be other festive activities around town throughout the weekend of December 12th and 13th. See a listing of the activities at www.jacksonville.org/winter activities. Number 11. City of London Public Bike Rental Service. 1. Hire your bike. At your chosen bike station, first touch the screen and follow the basic instructions for payment. Have your debit or credit card ready, as this is the only accepted method of payment. Upon payment, you will be given a printed code to unlock your bike. 2. Obtain your bike. Choose a bike and enter your printed code into the keypad. When the green light appears, pull your bike free. Adjust the seat height. Now, you're ready to ride. 3. Return your bike. You can return your bike to any station. To return your bike, find your chosen bike station and push the front wheel of your bike into an empty spot. If you have inserted the bike correctly, a green light will come on above the keypad next to the front wheel. If your bike is not returned within 24 hours, or if you have damaged the bike, you may be subject to a fine. Number 12. Vagueness is an obstacle to efficient communication. Sometimes people who want to avoid committing themselves to a particular course of action use vagueness as a ploy. For instance, a politician asked how precisely he intends to save money in the public sector might make vague generalizations about the need for improved efficiency, which, while true, don't commit him to any particular way of achieving this. A good journalist would then press for further information about precisely how this efficiency was to be achieved, forcing him to come out from behind this veil of vagueness. Or someone who was late for an appointment but didn't want to admit that this was because he'd stopped for a drink on the way might say, "Sorry I'm late. I had something I needed to do on the way here, and it took slightly longer than I expected," deliberately leaving the cause of the delay vague and exercising a particular kind of economy with the truth. Number 13. When opposites blend, they are placed on the far ends of a continuum, and between the two extremes there is a gradation that mixes the two opposites. For instance, black and white blend into each other through shades of gray. As the amount of white decreases through shades of gray, the amount of black increases. The two opposites are always in a proportional relationship, but at any point along the continuum, there is some amount of each, except at the very extremes. In contrast, a zero-sum game where the winner takes all also establishes a proportional relationship, but at any point along the continuum, there is only one or the other, black or white, and each retains its full identity. In a blend, pure black and pure white are diluted when combined into gray. They both lose their identity. Gray is not black, and it is not white. Number 14. In sports, Attendance is nearly always 98 to 99% of the time with at least one other person. The sports fan pays a price for the right to enjoy an emotional experience with others. The fan goes to the game to be with others, to share the experience in this social exchange. More broadly speaking, unlike most other retail settings, large crowds have positive psychological effects. No line at the grocery store checkout will make most shoppers happy, but no line to see a ball game is a definite hint to a fan either that this is a terrible sporting event or that the fan has arrived at the stadium on the wrong date. The excitement of the competition and the aura of the star power of the players on the team are such that the experience is best enjoyed in the presence of others. Number 15. As writers, we need to share our experiences of writing and to encourage one another, but we also need to work independently. We may also need to do certain things which paradoxically do not involve words. So the point you might consider is this. If you have a piece of writing in mind, or in some half-finished state, which is actually the case for almost all writers much of the time, stop. Go for a walk, draw a picture, enjoy something different, go window shopping, or even fly fishing. But observe, take notice, bring to your surroundings and other people an extra special level of attention. See them as unfamiliar and worth all your attention. Store up what you see, hear, or think, and let it lie in that part of your mind which has no obvious practical function, which isn't continually worrying about what you have to do today or next week. Writing needs that stocked reservoir of real but aimless sensations. When the time comes and you need them, they'll find you. Number 16. When asked, what was one of your best days at work? Very few of us recount the time everything went smoothly and the big project we were working on came in on time and under budget. Considering how we work so hard to make things go well, that example should count as a pretty good day at work. But strangely, the days everything goes smoothly and as planned are not the ones we remember with fondness. For most of us, we have warmer feelings for the projects we worked on where everything seemed to go wrong. We remember how the group stayed at work until 3 a.m., ate cold pizza, and barely made the deadline. Those are the experiences we remember as some of our best days at work. It was not because of the hardship per se, but because the hardship was shared. It is not the work we remember with fondness, but the fellowship, how the group came together to get things done. Number 17. If you're a small herbivore, it's a bad idea to run in the face of danger. Wolves could easily follow you and attack, so it's better for you to hide. Roe deer don't run very far before they turn around and try to return to their original location. And when they do, they cross their own tracks, which confuses their pursuers. Which trail should they follow? Once they're safely back on home grass, roe deer hide in groups of small trees. And because herds are easier to spot than single animals, roe deer live alone. But another reason for their solitary existence is the lack of food in ancient undisturbed forests. A herd of deer would have to cover a lot of territory to find sufficient food. Traveling long distances, however, increases the risk of coming across a pack of wolves, and so the single life is better. Number 18. It was not until the advent of the Industrial Revolution, the historical period beginning in the late 1700s, when the economies of the United States and many nations in Europe shifted from manual labor and hand tools to machines and factory manufacturing, that human-produced garbage became a critical issue. The full effect of the Industrial Revolution, however, was not felt until around the turn of the 20th century, when systems of mass production and mass distribution were developed. This economic change produced many more products for people to purchase, and it also created jobs that helped to increase wealth that could be used to purchase products. As people were able to buy more and more new things, they stopped seeing value in broken and used items and began seeing these old items as trash. New forms of colorful advertising and packaging encouraged this burgeoning consumer culture. Number 19. The reasons for the deficiencies in human-machine interaction are numerous. Some come from the limitations of today's technology. Some come from self-imposed restrictions by the designers, often to hold down cost. But most of the problems come from a complete lack of understanding of the design principles necessary for effective human-machine interaction. Why this deficiency? Because much of the design is done by engineers who are experts in technology, but limited in their understanding of people. We are people ourselves, they think, so we understand people. But in fact, we humans are amazingly complex. Those who have not studied human behavior often think it is pretty simple. Engineers, moreover, make the mistake of thinking that logical explanation is sufficient. If only people would read the instructions, they say, everything would be all right. Number 20. When you buy from large corporations, you support the increasing consolidation of wealth and power in the hands of the few. Chain businesses often take those dollars directly away from smaller local businesses that cannot afford to lose the income. By making your purchases at local businesses, you spread that wealth out to more local people and increase your community's standard of living. This is because local businesses rely more on local suppliers and service providers, forming a kind of local economic web of interdependence that creates jobs and a thriving community. Therefore, every dollar you spend at a local business helps your community maintain its individual character, uniqueness, and diversity while supporting your neighbors in their quest for the good life. Paying in cash rather than by credit card can also help local businesses, as they are often the ones least able to afford the hefty fees the credit card companies charge them for each and every transaction. Look in the phone book for local alternatives to large corporate chains. Number 21. Nitrogen in its gaseous form is often used in situations in which it is important to keep other, more reactive atmospheric gases away. It serves industry as a blanketing gas, for example, in protecting materials such as electronic components during production or storage. To prevent the oxidation of wine bottles are often filled with nitrogen after the cork is removed. Nitrogen has recently also been used in blanketing fruit after it has been picked to protect it from rotting. Apples, for example, can be stored for up to 30 months if they are kept at low temperatures in an atmosphere of nitrogen. In addition to these applications, nitrogen is used in oil production, in which it is pumped in compressed form underground to force oil to the surface. Ordinary air cannot be used for this purpose because some of the gases that make up air would react with the oil, producing undesired byproducts. Number 22. The bigger the group, the greater the benefits, up to a point. Communities of humans tend to be relatively stable up to around 150 people. This appears to be the optimal size for a cooperative group of humans, both across the world and throughout history. It is thought to reflect limitations in how much social information a human brain can keep track of, not just regarding their own relationships, but other people's too. Our capacity to sustain larger cooperative groups than any other primate probably stems from our ability to learn not just from our own personal experience, but also from other people's experiences. Even with the benefit of gossip to circulate information about other people's reputations to boost our social capacities, if a group of humans has more than 150 members, we end up losing track of who's who. That makes the maintenance of social harmony within the group much more challenging. For human cooperatives to remain stable across populations larger than 150 people, we need to invent God or gods. Number 23. How can we make decisions in the face of scientific uncertainty? The answer is that our plans generally have to be conditional and contextual. Scientific information can help us understand environmental issues, but the policies we create based on this understanding will always depend on further study and more confirming evidence. An approach currently favored by many natural resource managers is called adaptive management or learning by doing. In adaptive management, policies are designed from the outset to use scientific principles to examine alternatives and assess outcomes. Rather than assume that what seems the best initial policy option will always remain so, adaptive management sets up scientific experiments to monitor how conditions are changing and what effects our actions or inactions are having on both target and non-target elements of the system. The goal of adaptive management is to enable us to live with the unexpected. It aims to yield understanding as much as to produce answers or solutions. Adaptive management aims to create policies that respond to potential changes, and it uses experiment to figure out ongoing changes and effects of the policies. Number 24 through 25. Recent research on solutions to social dilemmas provides an example of the positive value of regulatory authorities. In a social dilemma, a society must prevent citizens from engaging in actions that are individually beneficial in the short term, but that hurt society in the long term. Studies suggest that one solution that groups voluntarily adopt when faced with social dilemmas is to designate formal leaders who are empowered to control the behavior of the group's members. Similarly, groups develop rules governing members' conduct to preserve valuable social relationships. These informal rules are the precursors of formalized law. It is also important to recognize the potential dangers of giving authorities the power to affect public behavior. Authorities may use that power to advance their own interest, or the interest of a particular group or individual over the interest of others. It cannot be assumed that authorities will be compassionately motivated and will use their power and legitimacy to promote the positive objectives outlined above. Although they can facilitate the productive exchange of resources to the benefit of all members of society, it is not inherent in the nature of authority that it will function in this way. The effects of authority depend on the motives of those exercising it. Number 24 through 25. Recent research on solutions to social dilemmas provides an example of the positive value of regulatory authorities. In a social dilemma, a society must prevent citizens from engaging in actions that are individually beneficial in the short term, but that hurt society in the long term. Studies suggest that one solution that groups voluntarily adopt when faced with social dilemmas is to designate formal leaders who are empowered to control the behavior of the group's members. Similarly, groups develop rules governing members' conduct to preserve valuable social relationships. These informal rules are the precursors of formalized law. It is also important to recognize the potential dangers of giving authorities the power to affect public behavior. Authorities may use that power to advance their own interest, or the interest of a particular group or individual over the interest of others. It cannot be assumed that authorities will be compassionately motivated and will use their power and legitimacy to promote the positive objectives outlined above. Although they can facilitate the productive exchange of resources to the benefit of all members of society, it is not inherent in the nature of authority that it will function in this way. The effects of authority depend on the motives of those exercising it. Number 26 through 28. There was a young boy who used to go for regular soccer practice, but always played in reserves and never made it to the playing 11. While he was practicing, his father used to sit at the far end, waiting for him. The matches had started, and for 4 days, he didn't show up for practice or quarter or semi-finals. All of a sudden, he showed up for the finals, went to the coach and said, "Coach, you have always kept me in the reserves and never let me play in the finals. But today, please let me play." The coach said, "Son, I'm sorry, I can't let you. There are better players than you, and besides, it is the finals. The reputation of the school is at stake, and I cannot take a chance. The boy pleaded, "Coach, I promise I will not let you down. I beg of you, please let me play." The coach had never seen him plead like this before. He said, "Okay, son, go play. But remember, I am going against my better judgment, and the reputation of the school is at stake. Don't let me down." The game started, and the boy played like a house on fire. Every time he got the ball, he scored a goal. Needless to say, he was the best player and the star of the game. His team had a spectacular win. When the game finished, the coach went up to him and said, "Son, how could I have been so wrong in my life? I have never seen you play like this before. What happened? How did you play so well?" The boy replied, "Coach, my father is watching me today." The coach turned around and looked at the place where the boy's father used to sit. There was no one there. He said, "Son, your father used to sit there when you came for practice, but I don't see anyone there today." The boy replied, "Coach, there is something I never told you. My father was blind. Just 4 days ago, he died. Today, for the first time, he is seeing me from above." Number 26 through 20.